We decided to take Highway 3, also known as the Crow's Nest Highway, on our continued trek towards the west coast. This highway hugs the American-Canadian border most of the way. One of the first stops along that route is the place we are about to arrive at called...
Ladies and gentlemen, the Traveling Wildberries.
Lundbreck Falls. This is one of my top 10 highlights of this trip. A beautiful area that boasts just about everything you would want. There is a paid campground, some dispersed tent camping areas along the water's edge, a day picnic area, a few walking paths, and the piece of de la résistance, as they say, is the extraordinarily beautiful waterfall at the far end of the park, past the bridge, where you can swim and just enjoy a beautiful vista. What a beautiful area. I wanted to stay here for a few days, but seeing as we just got back on the road from a long week break at Kathy's father's place, it was probably best to continue on. Suffice to say, I have noted this place as a must-visit spot for any future adventures towards this area.
Lundbreck Falls, Provincial Recreation Area. The rocks at Lundbreck reveal a watery past. If you were standing here 110 million years ago, the waters of the Western Interior Seaway would have been lapping at your feet. This inland sea divided North America in half, connecting the Arctic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. During the 40 million years that followed, this shallow sea came and went, while mighty rivers flowed into it from the rising Rocky Mountains to the west. By the time the Western Interior Seaway made its final retreat, it had certainly made its mark.
We parked the RV in the lot closest to the day picnic area and promptly went for a long walk.
We walked down towards the side of the park which contained the campground.
And a very nice campground it was. There were many spots along the waterfront with several others scattered throughout the piece of land moving back towards the hill where we entered the area.
There were all types of different RVs occupying the park. Everything from huge 30-foot pull-alongs to smaller van types, and also several tents.
We walked past where we parked in order to explore the other side of the park, leading towards the waterfall.
After checking out the whole area, I went back to the RV to grab the drone. As I was coming back to meet Kat, I noticed there were birds nesting up under the bridge. I decided I would try to have a closer look while being sure to keep enough distance so as not to scare the birds.
It turns out the birds didn't quite see things the same way. They decided the drone was a threat, so they started darting for it as if to attack it. Decided to land and then take off from a place a little further down the path, closer to the waterfall.
After I flew the drone, we went back to the RV to fix up a snack for lunch.
We sat by the waterfront and ate, then packed up and took off down the road.
Our next stop would have to be our overnight spot since it was getting later in the day.
Who knew?
Right through the mountain.
Oh, wow. Jeez. This is incredible.
We pulled into Cranbrook around 7:30, and after a quick scout around the main area, we found a great spot near the train tracks where we could relax, have supper, and spend the night.
Yet another night by the tracks.
Such twice.
One thing of note, on our way here we drove past a place called Frank. This area had an interesting look to it from the highway. Neither of us knew what it was all about, but we did notice a sign saying Frank Slide. So once we had the chance to look it up, we found out what it was all about.
It turns out there was a major incident in this area back on April 29th, 1903.
The Frank Slide was a massive rock slide that buried part of the mining town of Frank, Northwest Territories, Canada. Around 110 million tons of limestone rock slid down the Turtle Mountain. Witnesses reported that within 100 seconds, the rock reached up the opposing hills, obliterating the eastern edge of Frank, the Canadian Pacific Railway line, and the coal mine. It was one of the largest landslides in Canadian history and remains the deadliest. Because the slide occurred at 4:10 in the morning, no one had a chance, and thus between 70 and 90% of the town's residents were killed. most of whom remain buried in the rubble today. Multiple factors led to the slide. Turtle Mountain's formation left it in a constant state of instability. Coal mining operations may have weakened the mountain's internal structure, as did a wet winter and cold snap on the night of the disaster. It's also interesting to note that, had we stopped and spent one extra day there in Frank, this would have put us one day back in timing on our journey. Looking at the timing of everything after the fact, we saw that one day would have put us in line with potentially having to deal with being stuck in a fire zone.
That's right. We had planned to branch off Highway 3 onto Highway 97 in order to visit Penticton, Kelowna, and Vernon, but without that one-day delay, this meant that we were in Grand Forks and planning to head out from there when we heard the news that Highway 97 and the whole area towards those places was closed down due to the threat of huge forest fires.
Since we didn't stop this time around, we have decided to make plans to check things out in the future, if and when we find ourselves in this area again.
Well, that's it for now. Be sure to come out and check out the next video where we discover an amazing waterfront area in a great little town at just the right time, since the temperatures were pushing upwards into the high 90s. Ciao for now.